Hello, hello. How are
Hi,
you?
how are you?
Good, good. It's so good to see you.
You too.
Should we give it a minute or should we just go ahead and jump right in? What do you think?
Um, I think we can start.
Okay, okay. Why don't we do intros first? Because I normally like to introduce my guests, but since we're here on yours, I'm going to let you do your thing and then I'll jump in anytime.
Okay, great. So I am Dania Brener. I am the founder of Balanced Nutrition by Dania, and I am a registered dietitian focusing on women's health. So women who come to me are usually those that are trying to conceive, are having issues with fertility, women with PCOS, endometriosis, endocrine disorders, among other things. So that's mostly what we do here.
And you're geographically located where, but can service patients where? I think that's really important.
Yeah, so I am located in Miami, Florida, specifically in the Aventura area. And I work with patients from all over the country. I do telehealth and also I see patients in person.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. So I am Dr. Carolina Sueldo. I am the founder of Sabo Fertility Center, a boutique fertility practice in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am licensed in both the state of Florida and the state of California, so I do see patients from all over both of those states. But the clinic, the brick and mortar location, is in Fort Lauderdale. And Dania and I got connected. I really, really believe in the whole person approach to fertility. And in the woman or in the couple that's trying to conceive, building that team as you go along. Because obviously I'm going to help in one aspect, but I can't help in all aspects. And so that's where people like Dania come in. And we are just very aligned, I think, on our vision in terms of how we approach patients, how we treat the fertility journey. And so I thought, let's bring a friend on, let's chat a little bit, especially now with the holiday season. I think there's two components to the holidays when it comes to fertility. One is that it can be very triggering.
Yeah.
And then number two is just, gathering around meals. And so there's just a lot of food involved at all the functions. So I thought this would be a great topic to cover at this time of year, and just wanted to explore this a little bit as we go into kind of the end of the year. So the first thing I'm actually going to start a little bit before is, Dania, what got you interested in nutrition? Like, how did you even, I'm going to start way back.
Yeah,
And then
wow.
we'll jump forward.
Yeah, so my passion for nutrition started in high school. Actually, I was born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela. So it all started there. I was volunteering at a home for the orphan children, and I saw malnourishment all over the place, and that's really what got me into it.
How did you shift into women's health? Like, how did you pare down within the world of nutrition down to women's health?
So that's a good question. There's so many things about nutrition that are interesting, and it's very broad. And I had been seeing a lot of friends of mine that were having issues with fertility, and a lot of people all over having issues with fertility. And I started to do a lot of research on it and found that there is a gap, and there is a big gap in not only the medical world, but in general about fertility, that how diet can really play a big role in fertility. And then after that, I really got into hormones, and it all kind of came together, and I'm the women's dietitian, right? I focus on a lot of hormone related conditions in women.
So let's start with the question that I always get asked as a specialist, which is, what is the fertility diet? What should I be eating to get pregnant? And usually my answer is there's not really a fertility diet per se, but I'm going to let you kind of take that and run with it.
Yeah, so that's completely true. There's not one diet for fertility. The same way that there's not one diet for high cholesterol, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we can do to improve, for example, cholesterol levels, or things that we can do to improve chances of fertility with diet. So there's a few things that I like to focus on, and it's making sure that the diet as a whole is kind of a Mediterranean style diet where we really focus on a lot of anti-inflammatory and antioxidant rich foods. People who sometimes have a hard time conceiving, whether it may be because of endometriosis or PCOS, usually have inflammation in the body, meaning their insulin levels are high, their glucose levels are always high, so that can cause some inflammation in the body. So I really try to focus on a lot of nutrient-dense foods, like, for example, a lot of fruits and vegetables. That's kind of like the obvious, but things like omega-3 fatty acids are going to be very, very important for women who are trying to conceive. So we start with food first, and then we talk maybe about some supplements, depending on the person. Everything is very individual. Especially in my practice, I like to see labs first before recommending certain supplements. For example, vitamin D can be a very important marker to look at, and vitamin to look at. So if it's low, we decide on a specific dose in order to improve vitamin D status. So when it comes to the fertility diet, it depends, right? And it depends on the person, and it depends on their labs. If their iron is low, right, we need to work on that in order to improve their iron status and, you know, work on that specific thing. So if we're talking really, really broadly, I like to focus on a Mediterranean style diet with a lot of fruits, vegetables, healthy fats are going to be really, really important. A lot of nuts and seeds, and also lean proteins, and sometimes plant-based proteins can be beneficial as well.
Okay, that's awesome. And I think we could probably have a whole hour-long discussion about just that alone. But shifting gears a little bit to the holidays. So, you know, we mentioned that the holidays can be triggering, that can sometimes cause, you know, a disordered relationship with food during that holiday season. And then also just the types of foods that are available. So I think if you can just maybe touch on both of those individually, and then we can kind of dive a little bit more.
For sure. So yeah, holidays can be very stressful. Some people can get really triggered, and there's always that one family member or that aunt that has something to say, right? And they have no idea what you're going through, if you're going through fertility treatments, if you're just started to conceive and you're doing some things, and, you know, they have no idea what you're going through. So their comments, sometimes it's important for you to know that sometimes they have nothing to do with you. And it's sometimes a reflection of their insecurities or their own thing, and they're kind of projecting it. So that's number one, that something I always discuss with my patients. Like, everyone has something to say always. So try not to really take it personally. That's number one. Go with that in mind before you go to the dinner. And number two, and that is really, really important, is that one meal is not going to make or break your health. One meal, yeah, it's not going to make or break your fertility. If you enjoyed yourself and you had a meal and you were enjoying with your family, and yes, you ate more carbs than you usually eat, and you had dessert, that's not going to mean that you're not going to get pregnant because you ate that way one day. And that's really, really important. And something that I always say is that the fertility journey is stressful, and it's stressful enough. You shouldn't be adding more to that stress by going into something that should be nice and family and happy with more stress. So it's not all about the food. It's really not.
Right.
And focusing on other things, right? Like focusing on connecting with people. That's really important during the holidays. Focusing on family, on friends, on gift giving, right? Depends on what you celebrate. Make sure that you are really not going into the meal or the event with like only food in your head, because there's so much more that you can focus on.
I love that. And I think you alluded to this. I think another great point is, okay, let's say that one meal, you know, you did what you weren't supposed to do or whatnot. That doesn't automatically like make you a failure, and the whole change is now down the toilet, and, you know, that sort of catastrophic all or none thinking. It's like, okay, tomorrow's a new day and we'll regroup and reset. Like, I think that's also an important thing to mention. What about for those that might be traveling? Because I think that's another thing, like traveling during the holidays, you know, airports or staying at someone's house. And so you're either eating out or you don't really have control over what you're eating. What would be your best tips for that?
So, good question. So, airport snacks. Nowadays, airports have changed a little bit. I see more and more healthful options. Are you going to find the most beautiful salad? No, but you can find yogurt and cottage cheese and cheese sticks and fruit. So try and go towards those foods at the airport. Last resort, maybe go for a protein bar if there's nothing else. They usually have some of those there too. So don't go crazy. There's always something you can find. Worst case, you can bring something from home also. Bring a fruit and some nuts, and that can help for a snack during the time that you're at the airport. And don't stress, there's always something you can find. Popcorn. You think that's also like a junk food, but it's not. Popcorn is actually high in fiber. There's always popcorn at the airport, so you can find some popcorn as well. There's always a way to navigate the airport. And then when you're away and you're not home, right, you're traveling, you're not in your kitchen, so you're not cooking all your meals, focus on a few things that you can add, right? Don't focus on all the things that you can't have. Focus on a few things that you can add to your meal. For example, let's say for breakfast, you were at a family member's house and they were serving eggs and bacon and sausage, right? And things that you usually don't want to have so much of, especially if you're trying to conceive. Okay, focus on the eggs. Ask if there's fruit available. Take some fruit, whether it's a banana, an apple, berries, doesn't really matter. Focus on the things that are available to you. If you're going out to a restaurant, look at the menu. What are things that look delicious and you may want to have, which is fine to have also? And are there vegetables there? Are there any whole grains there that you can include? Are you looking at any proteins? So I feel like there's always a way, anywhere you go, there's something that you can include in your plate that is going to be helpful.
Okay, that's really good, I think. Another, I don't know if it's a myth or a truth, I'll let you answer, but let's say you know that at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock you're meeting the family and it's going to be this feast, right? And like in Latin culture, I'm sure it was similar in Venezuela, where you start at like 7, 8 o'clock, you go till midnight. So there's like 5 courses and dessert and coffee and all the things. Is there any truth to like fasting the whole day or like calorie restricting during the day? Now, growing up, it was to make room, right? But from a nutritional standpoint, what would your thought be there?
So that's actually one of my first tips that I give. And the first thing that I focus on, because a lot of people, and I hear this a lot even with my friends or my family members, oh, I'm going to save all my calories for later in the night because we know we're going to have a big feast with the whole family, so better not eat, right? I'm going to just save those calories. And that's actually not a great way at looking at it. Why? If you're not eating for a very long period of time, your blood sugar is going to drop. And what happens when your blood sugar drops? Your body is so smart and it wants your blood sugar to always be at a level where it's good for you, right? If you don't have issues with insulin and glucose, right? Usually in a healthy person, that's what happens. And when your blood sugar drops, either you're making new sugar from your liver or your cravings for simple carbohydrates increase. Yeah. So simple carbohydrates or sugars will increase because it's a very easy, quick way to get that blood sugar back to a stable place. So if you fasted all this time, you're going to get to that dinner ravenous and you are going to eat anything and everything in sight. So my recommendation is don't put it on a pedestal. Don't put the meal on a pedestal as if it's this one-time thing. It's never going to happen again. It's not true. It's going to happen again and again and again. And maybe not only once during the year. It could happen more times. And make sure you're eating a healthy, balanced breakfast. Make sure you are including fruits and vegetables throughout your day. Have a lunch. Make sure you're not going into that meal starving. If you go starving, it is likely that you'll binge, and that can make you feel guilty and can make you feel like you overate and feel stuffed and have a stomach ache, and maybe the next day you'll have these intrusive thoughts and it could even lead to restriction the next day, which is not the idea either.
Right. Right, right. So I want to shift gears a little bit, and they're similar but not the same, is the world of infertility and the world of pregnancy loss. And from a nutritional standpoint, I think the audience would love to know, like, as you're navigating this holiday season, are there any food, or are they the same, which they might be, when you're maybe somebody who has a history of an early miscarriage and you're now newly pregnant, you're not ready to tell anybody, what are some of the things that maybe that person wants to keep in mind?
So I would recommend, first of all, if you don't want to tell people, don't.
Yeah.
That's your choice. And no one needs to know everything about you, right? There's some things that are personal, and I would keep it that way. That's number one. Number two, from a nutritional standpoint, avoid alcohol. Alcohol at this moment may not be the best thing, especially if you just had a miscarriage. There's a lot of inflammation that can go on during that period of time. Or if you're just found out that you're pregnant, you should definitely not be consuming alcohol at this moment. And if you don't want people to ask, what I recommend to my patients, whether they're trying to conceive or not, even if they're not even trying to conceive, I also recommend this. Grab a glass, put some soda water in it, lime. No one will ever know that it's not vodka. So if you don't want people to ask questions, you just have to do things like that, and that's okay. Or if someone comes over and they're like, oh, why aren't you drinking? Just say you don't feel like it. I don't want to drink. Don't fall to the pressure, or like, don't let them convince you, and tell them, listen, I need you to respect this. I'm really not in a mood to drink today. Please respect that. So alcohol is one of them, and a very important part of it. Number two is that, yes, it's the holidays, the food is going to be a little bit different. And when we're trying to lower inflammation, yes, we don't want to avoid a lot of fried foods and foods that can be more pro-inflammatory, and foods very high in saturated fats. But that doesn't mean that if you have it once, then your system is going to be inflamed, and right? It's not the case. So also, it's a stressful time for sure. So don't add to that stress. Enjoy yourself. Yes, fill your plate with vegetables if they're available. Get some protein in. There's always some sort of protein that you can get in. Get that into your plate. And if there's dessert that you're really looking forward to because it's the holidays, enjoy it. That's not going to make everything worse, if that makes sense.
Right. Can you just touch briefly for the audience who may not be familiar with the concept of pro-inflammatory foods and anti-inflammatory foods? Can we just cover that just briefly?
Yeah. So there are foods that promote inflammation more than others, and there are foods that help kind of do the opposite. They're anti-inflammatory. And some foods that are pro-inflammatory are foods that are high in things like trans fatty acids. Those are very, very inflammatory, and usually I try to tell my patients who are trying to conceive to avoid them completely. They have no health benefits whatsoever. On the contrary, even cardiovascular disease risk can emerge with eating a lot of trans fatty acids. So foods that have trans fatty acids are those made with hydrogenated oils. So if you're going into a holiday party, it's not very likely that you're going to find trans fatty foods. But if you are away and you're not home and you're traveling, read the labels of the foods that you're consuming, the packaged foods that you're consuming. They can be found in a lot of deep fried foods like donuts and some pastries. And also some chips still have them. They're illegal in the state of New York, but in other states, not so much. So maybe some restaurants that deep fry French fries could be using these types of fats. So trying to avoid those fats can be beneficial for you if this is something that you're really focused on. And then foods that are also pro-inflammatory are, yes, deep fried foods. Foods that are very sugary. Those can promote more inflammation than those that are anti-inflammatory. So the anti-inflammatory foods are more so your fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and fatty fish. Those can help with inflammation.
So in general, if I had to use like a one word, it'd be like unprocessed versus processed. Would that be an easy one word thing?
Yeah, that would be easier.
Yeah.
But not to say that, because there are some processed foods that are actually really good for you. Like
Okay.
some marinara sauces, those are processed. Some
Okay.
of them are really good for you. They have no sugar, no added oils. It's just
Okay.
tomatoes, garlic, right? So, and that's a processed food. So kind of take it with a grain of salt. But in general, generally speaking, yeah, the packaged foods like the cakes, the cookies, right,
Got it.
those things are usually, yes, not the best for you and more pro-inflammatory. And yes,
Got
the
it.
more natural
And
foods,
then
right, that don't come in a package are a little bit better.
better. Okay, that makes sense. And then I do have one question as we're kind of wrapping up here, and maybe looking ahead towards like the new year and New Year's resolutions, and how most of them we give up on them after the first week or two or whatnot. For patients who are looking to make dietary changes, what would be maybe the top three or top five recommendations that you would have, so that when those New Year's resolutions do come, they're able to maintain them beyond like January 1st or 2nd?
So number one, don't wait till January 1st to make changes. If you're really serious about changing some aspects of your health, specifically if you're trying to conceive and you have some sort of fertility issue, like you've been trying for a while and it's not working out and you really want that's your main goal, don't wait till January 1st, right? Start today. It's, what is it, January 7th, right?
December,
Yeah,
yeah,
the 7th. December 7th. Start today, right? Focus on small things. You don't have to do the all or nothing. Oh, I'm eliminating all these foods from the diet. I'm only eating unprocessed foods. Ask yourself, is that realistic? Is that something you'll be able to maintain for a long period of time? If the answer is no, then we have to think smaller, right? Focus on one thing. For example, I don't exercise. So today I'm going to start going on 15, 20-minute walks. And that's a small change you can make. And then you build on top of that, right? It's a slow process. You can't improve your hormonal health in a month. It's really difficult. It takes time, it takes commitment, and if you're not going to be able to maintain it, then it's better for you to like shift that thought process and be like, this is going to be a journey, and I'm going to build slowly, one habit on top of the other, on top of the other, until I get to the end, the end goal, which is improving your overall diet for fertility.
I love that. I love that. And that's very aligned with the way I counsel patients. The idea is small baby steps that are going to be sustainable over time. So I very much align with that. I have a colleague who talks about exercise as loving your body. So like, how are you going to love your body with movement today? What are you going to do for yourself today? And that, I think that's a great reframe. Like, instead of making it this sacrifice or making it this big thing, it's no, I love myself enough to do XYZ, or I love myself enough to eat XYZ or whatnot. And I love kind of that reframe. That's beautiful.
And also, if you're doing a type of exercise that you don't enjoy, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You're going to do it maybe twice, and then you're not going to be able to continue doing it, and that's not sustainable. So find something that you enjoy, whether it's walking. Maybe you enjoy a boot camp class. Maybe you enjoy Pilates. So try and find that one thing that you enjoy or two things that you enjoy and stick to them. It's going to be easier to stick to something if you like it.
Right. And I think the other concept that you highlighted, which is super important in this, is really the idea of long-term change, that these are the simple things to do, but they require time and commitment. That there's no, you're not going to lose 20 pounds in 1 week, nor would we want you to, frankly. But really it's about how do we, make these small sustainable changes. And you may not see it now and you may not see it in a week, but in 2-3 months you would. So I love that. I love those two concepts that you highlighted. Dania, any like one takeaway message from today's talk that you would want patients to know going into the holiday season? So if they forget, if they don't remember anything from our conversation, one thing you would want them to remember.
The one thing is that one meal is not going to make or break your health. One meal, I don't want you to stress over that one meal that you're going into. And the second is that next day, new day. Don't restrict. Don't overcompensate. make sure that you're having a regular day the day after, and that will prevent that binge restrict cycle, which we really want to avoid.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. Tell people
Thank
where they
you.
can find you and how can they work with you.
Yeah, so you can find me on my Instagram at Balanced Nutrition by Dania. You can also find me on Google, Balanced Nutrition by Dania, and on my website, balancednutritionbd.com. You can find more information about me and about our practice, and you can also book an appointment there.
Beautiful.
And or if you want a free discovery call just to talk and to see if we would be the right fit, because I might not be for everyone, feel free to reach out and we can totally plan that.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me. Guys, for those who have not yet, be sure to sign up for my weekly newsletter. The link is in my bio. I also have a YouTube channel where this video will eventually go to live in the next week or so. So I hope you found this information helpful. Let us know in the comments. And if you have any questions for Dania or for myself, please feel free to reach out with a DM. Happy holidays to everybody and talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Such a pleasure.